Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sports Card Madness. This is LZ, and I'm here as always with Nick. And today we actually brought on a special guest, somebody that we've mentioned a few times before in previous episodes. Me and Nick's friend, Steve, who we've dubbed Fireman Steve.
All right.
And Steve, welcome to the episode.
Thank you,
Welcome
guys.
to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Glad to be here.
Okay, and thanks for being on. Steve is a tried and true Bostonian. He's got a lot of cool jerseys in the background for those that are watching on YouTube. Some actually signed jerseys, which is fantastic. But to the audience, if you recall a while ago, we had an episode that was dedicated actually to Fireman Steve. It was Steve ran into some trouble with a Juan DeFranco redemption, which we will not have Steve live through that mess. But the other thing that we mentioned on that episode was that Steve had procured 10 Ronald Acuna PSA 10s, and he was going to crack them all, which we were very nervous, me and Nick talking about that, cracking PSA 10s. And he was going to send them all the way to get signed. And then he was going to go ahead and resubmit them to PSA. So, Steve, now that you're back on the show, how did that all go?
Well, believe it or not so good, I guess you could say. So as you mentioned, I cracked 10. They were all rookie cards. And I was going to send them all in for autos. And then obviously the game now is have everything come back as a PSA 20. So I cracked them all, sent them all in. They all came back with autos as planned. And then I resubmit everything back to PSA. And I would say probably 3 of them came back in actual 10-10. And then everything else fell from either a PSA 9 auto 10 or a PSA 8 auto 10. So all the autos came back at 10, which I knew would happen because it was an actual sit down, not a quick, hurry up and sign and get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I don't know what went wrong. And I think the more I think of it is this auto game is becoming huge. And so PSA's guidelines and restrictions and grading evaluations back in 2018 are not what they are now. So I feel like back in 2018, maybe a PSA 10 back then is maybe a PSA 9 now because the guidelines have changed, dramatically. So a 2018 PSA 10, evidently, if you resend in now, 5-6 years later, has the chance to come back in 8 or 9. And I think it's I don't think anything happened to the card in regards to getting dinged or dropped, or I think it's just the system that PSA sends their cards through has tightened down over the past 5 years that these cards are no longer 10s in their opinion. And then even to take it a step further, when I cracked all the slabs, Larry, I kept the PSA paper, like the little tag at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sent everything back in, I taped the original PSA 10.
Perfect. Yeah. That's what I would have done.
Hey, like maybe they'd look at it and go, oh, this kid's kind of helping us out. He did a little bit of our homework for us.
Nope.
We know it's 10, it's a 10. But clearly that didn't mean anything either. So
nope, definitely not.
No.
Hey, such is life. It's a learning curve. I'll still do it again. But if I'm cracking 10s, they need to be like a 2022 or 2023.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old 10 is not a new 10 anymore, I guess. So that's what I learned from this game.
Or you crack them at a show, right? Bring them to a show where PSA is at, crack it in front of them, get it signed, and bring it right back. Maybe you'll have luck doing it that way, but that stinks.
I wonder if that
30%, Steve. 30%.
That was tough. So it is what it is. I mean, I still have some. I sold a couple. I kept a couple.
Mm-hmm.
But going into it, I didn't take this into consideration that PSA has changed over 5 years this much.
Yeah.
There's a lesson. There's a lesson here for the audience. A big lesson. If you're buying something on eBay and you're eyeballing some cards and it's slabbed in PSA, not all slabs are created equal. So there are old PSA labels, there are new PSA labels. And like Steve just said, the guidelines have changed. So if you really want the most value, the most pristine like version of a card, it's a new label, PSA 10, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes the value of Jordan, changes the value of everything, to be honest, because it's just that much tougher now. Probably
Sure.
10x tougher.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's very tough. So
that's
it
wild.
is what it is. It's a.
So if you were to do it again, Steve, would you still crack a 10, or would you just know I'm going to go for an 8 that maybe looks like a 9 or a 10, and maybe you can get a better grade on it?
I would still do it again, but it would have to be a new card.
Yeah. Yeah, much newer.
It'd
Yeah.
have to be a newer card.
Mm-hmm.
I would still do it because obviously I mean a PSA 20 is the name of the game.
Yep.
I personally don't. I have no interest cracking a 9, getting it signed, and having it come back a 9 like this. That just doesn't mean anything to me. Unless it's like a personal favorite athlete of mine, I just want their autograph, then I'll just give them anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna try and make a buck or like have something super valuable, it's got to come back at 10-10. That's the game. That's in my opinion.
Yeah.
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 So
yeah, I get it. I get it. Well,
it is what it is, man.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's a lesson to be learned in everything. Sounds like you learned a few of them. I am sorry that we had to relive this today. I don't know if I surprised you with asking this. It's all good.
It also goes to show like it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, it takes money, it takes work. So it's not an easy hobby, if you want to call it, to make money in. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So, but it's fun. It's enjoyable. It's the chase. That's what it is. So it is what it is. You move on, right?
It is what it is. It's a dopamine hit, right? It's like, oh, the chase and everything. So that's a kind of a good dovetail into what we wanted to talk about today. So, Nick and I have brought up Whatnot in the past. And we said, all right, we want to do an episode about Whatnot. And I said to Nick, I'm like, we got to have Steve come on because Steve does a lot on Whatnot. I know he has in the past, and I think Steve, your journey with Whatnot has kind of been a little up and down. It would be good to get a sense of where you are today with Whatnot. But just if you could just kind of tell the audience, like, I guess, when did you start using Whatnot? What appealed to you about Whatnot? Yeah, just let's go through your Whatnot journey. If we could.
What were you buying? Like that.
Yeah, what were you buying?
So I didn't even know what this thing was, an actual app, I guess. So two guys out in LA in 2019, two buddies. I only know this because the more I got into it, I'm like, where did this come from? Who are these guys? How'd they do this? Because I was more like, I'm interested in all that. So two guys back in 2019 got together, and they were kind of like, one guy was already involved with like GOAT, and like Nikes and Jordans and sneakers. Another guy was already super involved with Pokemon and Funko Pops. So these two guys got together and they're like, hey, let's try and make this selling platform, if you want to call it, where it's live, it's one-on-one, everybody's in the same room, as opposed to like eBay where you're making an offer and you're waiting 24 hours or you're waiting to see what happens. This is like instant action. Whereas they're doing card breaks, or you're buying Funko Pops, or you're buying sneakers. It's like auctions. So I didn't even know this was around, but this is what these two guys came up with. So kudos to them. So my cousin, who played professional hockey, he retired from the NHL, and he was always into cards, and he knew I was always into cards growing up as kids. We grew up together. So he came home from hockey, and we were kind of like just talking about cards and Bruins games and Celtics and this and that. And he's like, hey, have you been on this Whatnot app? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Never heard of it. Don't know anything about it. So this is probably 2021-ish. And he's like, well, this is what it is. He gave me a quick rundown, but he's like, it's also the devil. So be aware. It's an extreme rabbit hole. So whatever, I got the app, I tried it. He showed me what it was, and I didn't really stick to it because it was like super overwhelming. But it was a ton of Funko Pops, a ton of sneakers, a ton of Pokemon, and I didn't know anything about the Pokemon game. I knew a little bit about the Funko Pop game. And then he would bring me to like a different room, and all these guys are doing card breaks. And I was never into card breaks. If I just would go to like a card show, I would like, find a card, buy a card, sell a card, trade a card. I never got into breaks. And then I would watch just to get an idea how it works. Is it a scam? Is this real? Like, cause that crosses your mind. So we started watching these breaks, and then it turned into almost like, this is almost like a chase, like a gambling, like an adrenaline, like an instant, like satisfaction, like,
Yeah.
and it just became like a slippery slope. So I'm like, oh, this is super cool. And I was buying into breaks for everything. It didn't matter what the sport was. I wanted action. And the thing about Whatnot is it doesn't stop. It's a 24-hour machine. So people are in China, people are in Australia, people are in Italy, people are in France. There's always something happening. So it wasn't like you have to wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning and wait for 8 o'clock for like a show to start. It's 24 hours a day. So no matter where you are, what you're doing, there's always action. And that's excitement to me. It's like going to the casino. It's just that adrenaline, that the action, like the rush. So I was buying everything I can get my hands on.
And when you say you were buying everything, like
Breaks,
all the breaks,
everything.
how much were
I
you
don't
spending?
know. I have absolutely no idea, and I don't
Just
want to know.
too much.
Yes,
Wow.
it's too much.
Yeah.
I don't even want to know, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, because it was fun. Like, it was
Mm.
enjoyable, and it was like, I want the next, I want the next, I want the next. And the whole time you're chasing maybe a couple cards. So these dealers, these breakers, they're buying cases and boxes, and you buy like a box or a case that has 12 boxes in it. Like, you get one hit. So there's one hit inside a case. That's just how Panini and that's how these companies do it. So you're buying, like, say, an NFL team, there's 32 teams, like, you're hoping to get one team. And then you're hoping that team you have in the break is the hit of the case.
Right.
So super, super, super difficult. Like, very, very difficult to hit the case hit. But at the same time, like, you're having fun with it. And it's kind of like us three now. It's like, you're talking. And it's not a lot of it. I shouldn't say we're talking. It's live feed, but the talking going back and forth is done like through like texting or typing.
Yeah. Chat.
Yep.
It's chat. So, it was fun. It was enjoyable. But the more you step back and look at it, it's the chase. You need to be extremely, extremely lucky. And at the end of the day, the money you spend chasing this card, it's just easier to go buy it.
Yeah.
And that's a fact. Like,
Yeah.
you can probably talk to 100 other people that have a different opinion on Whatnot. And if they're like, Whatnot's the greatest thing, it's because they got a hit. They made a hit. And they're like, this is easy, but it's not easy. And there's a reason why these breakers are doing it. They're making X amount of dollars on top of their cost. But it's fun, and it's like on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. But it's a lot of money. It's a slippery rabbit hole. So I wouldn't recommend it. But at the same time, I've gone from, now I don't really do the card breaks because I've learned my lesson. And if I want a card, I'll just go find a card. But Whatnot has become so massive and so big that a lot of it now is shoes and clothing, like big time. So you can go on any time of the day, and there's guys that just have unlimited amount of like Jordans and Nike. and there's other sellers on there that are buying out like boutique shops that have like clothing around the world,
Yeah.
and they'll
Vintage
come on
clothing and what.
that's
Hmm.
it, and
Hmm.
they're just slinging clothes, and it's like a 15-second auction. It's all brand new, like tags. It's not used stuff. They'll put hoodies up, and you have 15 seconds to bid on a hoodie. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Because then 15 seconds later, the next hoodie's up. So it started off as a Pokemon Funko Pop, but now it's branched out into clothing and sneakers and cards, and like memorabilia, like
Yeah.
like jewelry and watches. You can find anything on
Yeah.
there.
There's anything and everything.
Everything.
It's
It's like
crazy.
a Craigslist of like sports memorabilia.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I buy vinyl on there, and this it's like it feels like a flea market to me from like the
Sure.
90s. So
Sure.
I follow this guy called Yo Nicky, right? And Yo Nicky, he's got all vinyl, but all that vinyl is bootleg vinyl. So he starts the auctions at $1,
Yep.
and you know you're gonna get whatever Metallica, you name it, and it's like $10. You're like, oh wait a sec, it's just like the flea market in the 90s. You get like the knockoff tapes.
Oh, really? It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
bootleg.
some of them,
Oh,
not
okay.
everybody. This Yo Nicky
Yeah.
guy, he's got the boot, but he admits it. He said,
Okay.
in vinyl, the term unofficial is bootleg essentially.
Okay.
So,
All right.
but you can get the real stuff. Like I'll get like really good deals on some like Fleetwood Mac or whatever, and it's pretty cool and it's exciting. Steve says, it's a 15-second, 30-second auction, maybe 45 seconds, and that cranks. Like Steve, I bet you probably almost never did buy it now on there, right? Like you must have just
Not in the beginning,
yeah.
because the buy it now is boring.
Yeah, what fun is that, man?
It's not fun,
This
but
is
the
like
the chasing, it was fun. It's a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
it's a
Um,
casino.
It's it. That's what it was.
Mhm.
This whole
It's a
thing. I mean,
casino.
LZ, we talk about this all the time, man.
We
This
do.
is like the scratch ticket era. You
Mhm.
know, like this whole whatnot boom is just supported by this. It's just cranking through these things and getting that hit, getting that scratch ticket.
Yep.
It's wild. It's
Yep.
absolutely wild. Very cool perspective.
Yeah. So
And
Steve, you were
a lot of guys on
sorry.
there now just will go on and just sell cards, not even do breaks.
Mm.
And you can find anything from like dollar auctions, and there's some big items on there.
Yeah.
It's
So
just
at the
where you wanna be.
peak of this, Steve, you had mentioned like you're chasing a team, right? And if you get stuck with a team, let's say you get the 49ers, like you're crossing your fingers that you get Purdy in that break, right?
Mhm.
And at the peak, like I came over your house one night and we went into your dining room, and like all over your dining room table was
That
just
was it.
cards after cards after cards. So this was like all part of the breaks, right? That the ones that you probably didn't necessarily want. How did you get rid of all those cards, or have you gotten rid of them?
I didn't. They're in
No.
boxes.
Yeah.
Because I
Okay.
know I talked to you about this, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, just get rid of the paper, get rid of the paper," and I can't do it. I just can't let myself throw away cards because
Yeah.
it's like, who knows? But I have a ton of junk cards, if you want to call it that. But I
Mhm.
just can't come to terms of just throwing them away because, like, what if? I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just how I look at it.
When it comes to base cards, I don't think there's a what if, man. I think that goes in the wood chipper or goes to add some mulch to your card or something like
You know
that.
what it
But
is? It's
Yeah.
kind of funny. So, like, my kids, my daughters, like, have friends come over, and they all want to go see the cards and see the cards. And so, like, I'll take out, they don't know because they're young, but they're interested enough about cards and they know who's who and who's good. So I'll just like, I'll open the boxes and be like, hey, just grab some cards, like take who you want, who you like.
yeah,
And it's all the base, it's all the stuff you and I could care
Mhm.
less about, but like the kids, like they're excited. They're looking through all these cards and they'll find like a cool name. You know what I mean? And it's, it's 15 cents, if that, but that's kind of what I do with them. It's kind of like hey, your friends come over and the hockey team comes over and they want to look at some cards. I'll just say, hey, grab a handful of cards.
that's
That's
fun.
perfect.
Yeah,
That's great,
Yeah.
right? So just
Yeah.
hold on to them for that
Yeah.
until the girls aren't interested anymore, and then when
Yep.
they're not interested, I don't know, donate them to the local
You could do that.
card
Yep.
show, right? Give them away to kids at the front door
I just
type thing.
can't throw them away. I can't
Yeah.
come to terms.
So
Yeah.
Steve,
Yeah.
are you like done with whatnot? Are you like
No,
over it, or are you still on
no,
there, or like
I'm still on
are
it.
you
I
like
like to
10% of
watch.
what you were doing before, or are you just like an observer, like a lurker
Oh,
now? Like what's
I'm
the
down to like 5%, I would say.
okay.
Um, no, I like to go on. I've kind of got hooked on like the Jordan thing, like the sneakers.
Uh-huh.
Mm,
Um, and I'm kind of watching like I'm interested with like the clothing at this point. Like a lot of these guys have some cool brands on there, and you can get some good deals. Um, and then if I'm bored, like if I'm at the station or if I'm working and I'm bored, I'll just go on and watch breaks just to see what's going on out there. Um, like the 2023 Absolute Football just came out like a couple of days ago. So if you go on Whatnot now, everybody's breaking Absolute because they're all going kaboom hunting.
yeah. Hmm.
It's just it never stops. And then after the kaboom hunting, then they're gonna go to the Don Russ Optic, and they're gonna start doing the downtown hunting, and then it's gonna spin to like baseball. Everyone's trying to get this Brady Chrome Expos Brady card,
Yep.
so everyone's chasing that, and then that'll phase out shortly, and then it'll kick over to something new. Um, I like to just keep an eye on things and know what's going on out there, and because I'm still interested, but I don't really necessarily get on breaks. I'll go
Mm,
in some guys' rooms when I know they're coming on that are like selling cards.
yeah.
And see if there's anything I like.
Yeah.
So
So
it's
there's
more,
definitely some entertainment value to it then
yeah,
it sounds like, right? You're going on there, especially the guys you like, and you're just kind of watching them. And
yep,
one night they might not have anything that you like and you just enjoy watching them, and another night
correct.
maybe there is some cool card and you're like, oh, maybe I do need to make a bid on
Yes.
this one.
So
Yeah.
yeah, doesn't cost anything. You just watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's
So
definitely entertainment value, the experience of it, which is cool, which I know it appeals to a lot of people. Um, Back to just, well, let's say up until this point, what's what's the biggest hit you got from any of these breaks? Like what card is it? Do you probably have a couple in mind, I'm sure.
my biggest hit was probably a messy auto,
Okay.
a messy on card auto. And again, I don't know anything about soccer. Um, and the thing with these breaks is a lot of times you don't really get to go in and like pick the team you want because like for the Messi, everyone's gonna pick Argentina. So it's kind of like, what's the point? So you buy into these breaks and they either spin a wheel, or you pick like from a deck of cards, and each card has a different team on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just happened to buy into like a soccer break, and I don't know anything about soccer, because it was something to do, and I just ended up spinning the wheel, and I got Argentina, and then luckily a Messi auto hit. So 1 in a million, if you want to call it that. It'll
Yeah.
never happen again.
What is
But
it worth? Do you know that card? The value?
so it's kind of funny. This all happened when the World Cup was going on.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So at the time, it was probably a $15,000 card
Nice.
because Messi was going off at the World Cup, and I'm like, well, I'm not selling it. I'm not selling it. It's Messi. So that kind of has gone down at this point. It's
Hmm.
probably $3,500 now.
Oh, oh,
Amazing.
oh.
But that's
Amazing.
the sports car world. When like things are going good, like you don't want to sell it.
Hmm. Yep.
But that's how it goes. It's the same thing in every sport.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm like, it's Messi. He'll retire someday. The cards will go back up. I don't want to sell it. It looks cool in my case. I paid maybe $45 to get in on the break.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like I like the card,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah, no, that's a good
oh,
hit. So you'd mentioned like the wheel spinning
yep,
and like I don't know, roll the dice and
yep.
whatnot. Was there any format that you liked? Did you like the wheel spinning? Like which one of those formats did you prefer or like the most? Do you remember?
I like it all. I like the spinning the wheel is fair for everybody. Um, no matter how deep your pockets are. Like the three of us are going to spend $45 on a break, and whatever the wheel lands on is our team, as opposed to if you go in on some breaks where you're paying for your team.
Hmm.
If you don't have the deep pockets, you're going to get outbid every single time on the big team. So it's kind of like not fair. But to a breaker, that's what they want. The breakers want people to spend the big money on these teams. Like right now, everyone's chasing like CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson on every single break. So the Colts and the Texans are going for huge money. But if you don't have the money to spend on that, like you can't even get in on the game. Because you're gonna get outbid every single time, as opposed to, hey, spin the wheel, there's 32 teams, like you might have a chance to get the Texans. It's kind of cool.
So
It
they'll
goes both
actually
ways.
auction a team. So they'll
100%.
just like you would auction like a shoe. They put up like Texans and people just bid on that for the
Yep.
right to that in the
Yep.
pack. Interesting.
And then the other side of it is they'll do a buy now. Like these absolute cases that are being broke, like the Texans, you can go on and you can buy the whole case. Like say you're buying the case for $1,400. Every single Texans card that comes out of that case is yours. Whereas
and that
like,
that might be 30 cards, or it might be two cards. Like you don't know.
That might be a zero.
Yeah, you might not get any.
You might not get any.
Yeah.
But for somebody who just wants to play, you have no chance. You can't buy the Texans, you know?
Right.
A few different angles. There's a few different ways they do it. The breaker sets up however they want to do it. I like the wheel spin. It's like a casino. It's like a slot machine.
Yeah. So, Steve,
but-
do you? Oh, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
So, do you think like this whatnot thing is a fad, or do you feel like this is like part of your routine now? I know for me personally, I'll throw my phone on some of these things and I'll watch a show and I'll put it on silent, like off to the side, just kind of watch. Are you thinking this is like a lasting thing, or you're gonna keep using it?
Yeah, I'm probably on every day, whether I'm buying or just watching. It's fun for me to watch. And I feel like as like, I don't know what would happen next, like to the next level, if you want to call it of whatnot, but as long as there's like a drive and a demand for sports cards and memorabilia and Funko Pops and Pokemon, like it'll be there. I don't know what makes it go away. I don't know why all of a sudden people be like, hey, I don't want to use whatnot anymore. Because I feel like every time we go to a card show, there's more and more people there. So there's obviously still a huge follow and a demand for sports cards. So you can't, whatnot is the place to do it.
Yeah.
And eBay is another one, but eBay is a different animal. That's not as exciting. You're waiting 7 days for an auction to end. Like that's boring.
Yeah, there's no like pomp and circumstance with eBay. There's no like wow factors, there's no lasers and smoke machines and stuff like there is with whatnot, right? You have these big personalities, these hosts, they're doing these shows, and that
I like it. I like whatnot. I think they've done an awesome job. If you kind of like go back and see like who their investors are, it's big names.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, and now that they've kind of branched out into clothing, jewelry, like Jordans.
Yeah, that's smart.
Like, it's huge. It's huge, I think.
Yeah, because then even if sports cards tank, it's almost the Amazon strategy.
Sure.
I mean, not to get into business too much here, but Amazon started with books, right? And then they moved to CDs. And then Barnes and Noble's like, well, we'll do books and we'll do CDs, and we got stores. But then Amazon's like, well, how about we just add everything?
Everything. We're really good at logistics.
It happened over a few years, and they added everything. And now when something tanks or something super competitive, they're just like, whatever, we'll just reduce the cost of it. So whatnot smart. If they could become the platform, and China's the growing market for this live shopping. Like, even my daughter who's 13, she's she sees live shopping on TikTok, stuff like that. We're sort of a little bit old, I guess. So it's fascinating and smart that they've like diversified this much, I think. So Steve, what would you, if anything, what would you change about whatnot, or like what would you have them improve?
I don't know. I don't know if there's much to change. It's like a well-oiled machine.
You know what I thought would be cool? If you're still thinking of something, how you're like chatting with people when you're in the auction? It'd be pretty cool to have like your face there, like a small little grid where you're like, sometimes there's only 20 people in the room.
You see
It's like
who's
maybe
who.
like maybe they grab like 4 people randomly, whoever's talking or something like that. It'd be cool to see the people. I mean, it's a small screen, but
Video or picture, Nick?
I think an avatar is probably easier,
Okay. Yeah,
but if
definitely.
they like, you know, I feel like they could do it for like 4 people or something. It's just like random. It'd be kind of cool to see. Like, I mean, there might be some weirdos on there. It'd be another fun thing to watch.
Yeah, I bet you there are some weirdos on there. I think the whole point of Whatnot is if you're on there working or you're a breaker, you're just how much money can I make and how fast.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, I wonder who's on the other side and who am I taught. Like, I don't think they care.
Right. Probably
They
don't.
could care less. They're like, as long as we're getting paid and like the payment goes through on their machine, they don't care what's going on.
Mm.
They're just slinging cards as fast as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Money.
All right.
So I love it. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, you love it. You probably wouldn't necessarily change something. Nick brought up a way to improve it, perhaps with the avatars of the pictures. Is there anything that you would like have them double down on, like something that just is really working? It's like, you know what? Keep doing it. Do it harder. Do it better. Enhance this thing. Anything comes to mind? More wheel spinning.
No, the only
more fireworks.
No, you know what's kind of cool that I agree with that they did is say you're in a room, like say Larry, you're doing a card break and there's 300 people in your room watching.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of you just being like, all right, thanks guys, like my day is over, I appreciate it, have a good everybody, you can like raid. You can take everybody from your room and go over to Nick's room. So it's kind of cool. Like, as opposed to just like Larry saying, bye guys, thanks for coming, and everybody like shuts their phone off. You can be like, all right, hold on, guys. We're gonna go raid Nick's room now. And you would bring everybody with you from your room to go into Nick's room. And you're immediately back into like another break. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like I would have to log off of your room and then like search Whatnot again to find another break. And it's cool because like whose buddy's on there. And it's just I think it's a genius idea.
That is cool. I think of it like we talk about vintage cards a lot on this show, Steve, right? And it's almost like, all right, I'm in a vintage room right now. Instead of me having to log out and try to find another vintage room, me as the host, I know that my buddy Nick also is running a vintage show starting in 1 minute. Everybody, mine's ending. We're all going to the next vintage show together. Let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
And a lot of guys, what they're doing now is like, say you and Nick want to run a show together, like you can split the screen. You can have both of you on at the same time selling. It's a pretty cool idea.
Okay.
So I feel like it's evolving. They're getting better and better and better. With these little just these little adjustments. But from like a bystander, like someone who's on there, it's cool.
Yeah. Okay.
It all makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So we started this pod, like we kind of went in hot right away and started talking about Whatnot and what you're buying and what you're spending and how often you're on there. But one of the things I think it's important to cover today is for people who maybe have never been in Whatnot and they're just trying to get exposed to it. So looking back, especially lessons you've learned over the past couple of years using this platform, what advice would you give somebody new who's just tonight is going to go into Whatnot for the first time?
Just watch.
Okay.
Watch. See what's going on. See who's who. You need to learn a little about it before you go in there, like guns blazing. Because there's a lot of people on there that have been doing it for a long time. So just watch and learn a little about it, like pricing. Like you can bounce from room to room to room and you can get an idea of like how pricing is. And some rooms are going to be more expensive than another room. If you go into a chat room and there's 300 people in there trying to get in on a football break, that's going to have more value. You're going to be spending more money in that room as opposed to someone else's who has 15 people.
Okay.
Because now you have 300 people trying to bid on a team as opposed to 15 people trying to bid on a team. So take it slow. Because your bank account is going to feel it. And hopefully your wife or girlfriend doesn't get pissed when you have 18 boxes of cards showing up daily at the doorstep.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
But
All right,
just
cool.
learn about it a little.
Yeah,
Just kind
take
of
it
browse
slow.
around, bounce
Take it
from
slow.
room to room.
All right,
Cool.
Yeah.
good.
All right. So Steve, we got our final question.
Sweet.
We ask everybody this question that comes on the pod.
All right.
It's a sports card show. So if you could sit down and have a coffee with any sports figure ever, dead or alive, so sit down a couple hours, hang out, who would it be and why?
I feel like everybody would say Jordan. I would uh I would probably say Tiger Woods. Um Reason being is so greatest golfer ever. Nobody will ever come near him ever. Um and outside of golf, just like his daily life would be so cool to learn about. Like in his prime, like he probably has some awesome stories um of what he was doing, who he was hanging out with. Um like learning about his golf game, how it happened, like how many like amazing courses he's played. Like I feel like if you talk to like a Jordan or like one of those, or like a Wayne Gretzky, it's the same rink, same basketball court. You're on the ice, you're on the basketball court. But I feel like with golf and Tiger, like traveling the world, exploring the world, and just hanging out with Tiger, I think would be a super fun experience, and just getting to know him. Like, he has some crazy stories and he was partying. And just to hear a little about it, you know what I mean, would be super cool, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
I
It is a
think.
good one. Yeah, we that's been brought up before. You're in the same air as Nat Turner. So Nat Turner, PSA owner, Steve.
You said Tiger?
Said Tiger as well. It's a great one.
What do other people say? Curious.
Not as many Jordans as you would think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no. Bill Russell,
Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth,
Oh.
yeah,
Mhm.
stuff like old time guys. And there's some, modern guys too. It's actually pretty diverse, believe it or
Yeah, it
not.
is. Mhm.
Which is kind of cool.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I think this was really helpful. I mean, I don't think LZ's touched Whatnot, or maybe he's just observed. I
haven't
never
bought anything.
Right.
But,
and
yeah.
I have never bought a sports card on there. I've bought vinyl music and stuff
Mm.
like that. So having you on here who spend so much money that you don't even know how much money you've spent
Yeah.
is was pretty helpful. It's almost felt
Yeah.
like a how-to guide to just like how to dip your toes in and how to also get lost in it. So you could find
Yes.
your place on that spectrum, I think. But I do think, as you said, their deals can be had with the right circumstances and
Correct.
the right
Correct.
odds in your favor or whatever. So I don't know, it's kind of
Correct.
fun. Awesome. Well, Steve, I know you're sort of off the grid. So some of our guests like to have a way to be found, or if they want to reach out. But if you don't, let us know.
Yeah, I don't have any IG. I don't. This is just more of like a hobby thing of mine.
Yeah.
Cool. That's great.
I'm not chasing certain cards, certain sets. I like to go to card shows. I like to sell stuff on eBay. I like to buy stuff on eBay. I like to do, get my daughters involved and look at cards with them and do little card breaks at the kitchen table with them. So I don't really, I'm like a nowhere to be found.
That's
All right. If the
Um,
audience wants to find you, they can come
Yeah,
through me.
I mean, I
they can
appreciate
contact
the
us.
offer.
Yep.
Yeah, you got it.
So thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right, sweet. I think that's the pod, everyone.